Let's talk about changing your life. What if I told you that you could do it? Not with some massive, heroic effort, but with a change so small you'd barely even feel it. Today, we're going to dive into the absolutely brilliant framework from James Clear's Atomic Habits and find out exactly how. Okay, so getting 37 times better at something in just 1 year? I know it sounds completely insane, right? Like some clickbaity marketing promise. But it's actually grounded in simple, powerful math. And it all starts with a number that seems almost laughably small. That's it, just 1%. That is the entire secret. We're not talking about some huge life-altering overhaul here. Nope, the goal is just to get 1% better every single day. A change so tiny you'd hardly even notice you were doing it. But this is where the magic happens. See, if you improve by just 1% every day, that tiny effort starts to compound on itself. So by the end of the year, you're not just 365% better, you are, get this, nearly 37 times better. It's mind-blowing, and it perfectly illustrates the core idea. Small habits make a huge, huge difference. So you're probably asking, how on earth can such a tiny change have that kind of massive impact? Well, it comes down to a simple truth. Our lives aren't really defined by a few dramatic turning points. They're defined by the sum of all our tiny daily choices. Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine you're on a plane flying from Los Angeles to New York City. Now, if the pilot adjusts the plane's heading by just 3.5 degrees, that's nothing. You wouldn't feel a thing. You're not going to land in New York anymore. You're going to land in Washington, D.C. Your daily habits are exactly like that tiny adjustment. A small course correction today can land you in a completely different destination a few years from now. So if our daily choices are that important, how do we get a handle on them? Well, to do that, we have to understand the engine that's driving them. It turns out every single habit we have, whether it's good or bad, runs on the exact same simple 4-step loop inside our brains. So first, something triggers it. That's the cue. Like, say, finishing your morning coffee. That cue triggers a craving, maybe the desire to feel productive. That craving leads to a response. You sit down and open your laptop. And finally, you get a reward, that feeling of accomplishment. Cue, craving, response, reward. This loop is so automatic we don't even think about it. The key to changing your life is to learn how to master these 4 steps. All right, so how do we actually take control of that loop? This is where it gets really practical. Clear gives us 4 laws of behavior change. It's basically an instruction manual for our own brains. And the very first law is all about what we see. It turns out our brains are incredibly responsive to our environment. Visual cues are by far the most powerful driver of our behavior. So the first rule is simple. If you want to build a new habit, you have to make the cue for it completely, unavoidably obvious. And this isn't just a nice theory. Look at this real-life experiment from a hospital cafeteria. They wanted people to drink more water. They didn't put up posters or lecture anyone. Nope. All they did was change the environment. They put water everywhere, by the cash registers, in every drink cooler. The results were incredible. Water sales shot up by 26%, while soda sales dropped. Behavior simply followed the most obvious cue. Okay, so we've made the cue obvious. Law number 2 is to make the habit attractive. It's just human nature, isn't it? We're way more likely to do things we actually find appealing. The trick here is to link the habits you need to do with the things you already want to do. This is a genius example of something called temptation bundling. An engineering student in Ireland knew he needed to exercise more, but what he really loved to do was watch Netflix, so he hacked his stationary bike and connected it to his laptop. He wrote a program where Netflix would only play if he was pedaling at a certain speed. How brilliant is that? He made the habit he needed to do, exercise, completely irresistible. Next up, we have Law 3, make it easy. Look, our brains are fundamentally wired to conserve energy, which means we are always going to choose the path of least resistance. So if you want to build a new habit, you have to remove as much friction as possible. The easier it is to start, the more likely you are to actually do it. There's this great story from a university photography class. The professor divided the students into 2 groups. The quality group would be graded on producing a single perfect photograph. The quantity group, though, would be graded purely on the number of photos they took. By the end of the term, who do you think produced the best images? It was the quantity group. While the other students were stressing out about perfection, they were out there just taking photos, practicing, experimenting, and actually learning. Repetition is what builds the skill. So here's a brilliant way to apply this in your own life. It's called the 2-minute rule. Any new habit you want to start should take less than 2 minutes to do. So read before bed becomes read 1 page. Study for class becomes open my notebook. The point isn't to achieve the big goal right away. The goal is just to master the art of showing up. And that brings us to the fourth and final law, which honestly might be the most important one of all. Make it satisfying. Our brains have one cardinal rule. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. If an experience feels good, our brain gets a clear signal. Hey, do that again. Look at the incredible impact of this in the real world. In Karachi, Pakistan, health workers were really struggling to get people to wash their hands regularly. You know what the solution was? It wasn't a bigger awareness campaign. It was partnering with P&G to introduce a premium, really pleasant-smelling soap. Suddenly, the act of hand washing became satisfying. And the results? They were staggering. Disease rates for things like diarrhea and pneumonia plummeted, all because the habit was finally enjoyable. But what about habits where the reward is way off in the future, like saving money? Well, you have to create an immediate reward. A couple did this by opening a special savings account and naming it Trip to Europe. Every single time they decided not to eat out, they would immediately transfer $50 into that account. Watching that balance grow provided the instant gratification they needed to stick with it. So, we have the 4 laws to build a habit. That's the blueprint. But how do we make it stick for the long run? How do we make sure we don't fall off the wagon after a week? Well, there are 2 incredibly powerful tools for staying on track. First off, track your habit. This is not a new idea. Benjamin Franklin was famous for tracking his progress on his 13 virtues. The simple act of putting a big X on a calendar provides immediate visual proof that you're making progress. It's so satisfying, and it creates this chain that you become really motivated not to break. And if you want to really raise the stakes, you can create a habit contract. This makes the cost of skipping your habit immediate and, well, painful. An entrepreneur named Brian Harris did exactly this. He signed a contract with his wife and his personal trainer. If he failed to track his food intake, he had to pay his trainer $100. If he missed a weekly weigh-in, he owed his wife $500. Talk about motivation. The social cost and the financial pain made success almost inevitable. So when you combine that amazing power of 1% gains with these 4 simple laws, you start to see that the real architect of your life isn't fate and it's not luck. It's your daily choices. Success isn't about those big one-time transformations. It's about the small, seemingly insignificant choices we make every single day. Your health, your wealth, your happiness, they are all just lagging measures of your habits. The person you will become in the future is being built right now, one tiny action at a time. So the only question that really matters right now is this one. What is the one tiny 2-minute habit you can start today? Forget about being 37 times better next year. Just focus on being 1% better today. What's it going to be?